Russian dictator Putin attacks NATO country again and again. Trump says Putin has let him down. He promises good news about ending the Russian-Ukrainian war. What does all this mean? And does Trump actually have any plan for ending the Russia-Ukraine war? This and other topics we will discuss right now. My name is Iryna Uslova, and today with me is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. Yuri, hello, I'm glad to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Putin is testing the West's resolve. We must now show weakness. Kaja Kallas said on the violation of Estonian airspace by Russian fighter jets, again 3 fighter jets. This is the third such violation of airspace in recent days, further escalating tensions in the region. I am in close contact with the Estonian government. We will continue to support our member states in strengthening their defense capabilities with European resources, Kaja Kallas emphasized. NATO also responding to the Russian mix in Estonian airspace. Next statement. Today, Russian aircraft violated Estonian airspace. NATO responded immediately and intercepted the Russian aircraft. This is yet another example of Russia's reckless behavior and NATO's inability to respond. The alliance state is an official statement. At the same time, United States ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, earlier today said that he thinks that the Russian threat will be slightly greater. Their stings have not achieved great success. So why doesn't everyone in this world and NATO countries understand that Putin is weak and it's fair to hit back?
I think that one thing is pretty clear is that if President was Kamala Harris, we wouldn't be having this problem right now.
At all?
We have a very clear situation of a president that is demonstrating weakness. And he wants to be like Putin, but he doesn't act like Putin because Putin is showing strength. And Donald Trump is showing weakness, bowing before Putin at every opportunity, giving Putin whatever it is that Trump can deliver. The only thing he can deliver is Ukraine. What we saw with these attacks on Poland, and now we see these provocations over Estonian airspace, and clearly there will be others, it's Putin trolling the world, Europe, and showing them that NATO, to a certain extent, is dead. Because when you have a group of countries that are relying on the United States as the backstop, as a country that's going to protect every inch of NATO countries, and that's why, I don't know, they pay money. That's why this is how their strategy of defense is formed. And when they can't count on the United States to come to their defense, that means that on one hand, there will be more provocations from Putin. And on the other hand, these countries are now very much warned to the danger that is at their front step. Similarly to Ukrainians who were awakened from their remnants of their fantasies about what President Trump might be able to do to truly help Ukraine overcome Russian aggression by dramatically increasing size, let's say, of aid to Ukraine, or at least strongly supporting Ukraine, at least in words. When President Zelensky went to the White House and we saw what we saw, this kind of a piece of history, great television, as President Trump said, but also an extreme moment of clarity, I believe, for people of Ukraine who understood what they're dealing with. Right now, the attack on Poland, similarly, I believe, has shown people of Europe and countries of NATO what they're dealing with and what is the real position of this Donald 2 weeks, come back and ask me in 2 weeks Trump presidency going to be like. This is going to be a demonstration of weakness one after the other. Therefore, we're going to see short-term more provocations and long-term more European arms productions, defense. I think that it also puts Ukraine in a very different light. because when you have United States with its army and true, the strongest military in the world, really by far the most lethal, no matter what our Secretary of War Hegseth would like to do, is to increase the lethality of our army. It's really, really lethal. So that's really kind of a fake thing. But when their appearance is now not expected and definitely not guaranteed, because, we need our troops now in our American cities, apparently more, to catch immigrant and transgender terrorists or whatever it is we're going to be fighting now. So that means that Europe has to take care of its own defense. And hey, Ukraine already knows how to deal well with Russians effectively, with drones for one. And this is where we see the conversation shift from, hey, let's talk about peace process, to, hey, look at that drone production. Ukraine's doing some amazing things. And now Europeans are looking at Ukraine as perhaps a big, important part of their security guarantee, and which is ironic, because not too long ago, Ukraine was speaking about getting security guarantees from the United States. You would think after the Budapest Memorandum, these kinds of conversations would be complete and finished. But no, Ukraine, though, is in a difficult situation because while some countries have more opportunity to tell the United States how they feel about them, Ukraine has less. And so we see this kind of a situation where Ukraine, on one hand, agrees with whatever plan Donald Trump has, but on the other hand, it can't capitulate. And so it's kind of like yes to everything, except we can't surrender. And it is bothering Donald Trump, and he's applying all the pressure he can. He can acknowledge that Putin is aggressor one day, but then the next day he'll walk it back and just say, oh, he let me down. And that's how it is every day and every other day, where it's back and forth depending on what the situation is. But Ukraine is now, with its war-weary but also trained and experienced army, is a huge part of European safety going forward. And I think that realization is becoming more and more omnipresent with every new provocation from Russia and from every non-response to that provocation from the White House.
I'm truly disappointed if you listen to what they are saying. Several drones were shot down in Poland and they fell on Polish territory, but they shouldn't have been that close, these drones. Donald Trump, in such way, said in an interview with Fox News, responding to a question about whether the Russian drone attack on Poland was intentional. Whether it was a mistake, I can't say, but the fact remains they were not supposed to be there, but they were probably disabled. That's the whole reaction. At the same time, President Donald Trump's approval rating has fallen to the lowest level of his second term, according to YouGov Economist poll results released Tuesday. In a weekly survey conducted last weekend, 39% of Americans approved of Trump's performance as president. Does such statement and behavior concerning Russian drones attacking Poland affect Trump's domestic approval ratings among Americans?
I don't think that any particular statement said about Ukraine affects President Trump's approval ratings, especially with his base, which is really the key here, because we know that people that didn't like Donald Trump didn't start liking him anymore in the last 9 months since he became president again. But it's the people, and we know that he's been losing independence. But the question really has been and is about what is his basis opinion. And I find that extremely encouraging, because I saw a poll this morning that indicated that now 45% of Republicans are saying that country is moving in the right direction. That is a huge drop-off, because in June, it was reported that the approval of Republican voters of the direction of the country was in the mid-70s. So it's about a 30% slide in just about 3 3-4 months. That is a really powerful statement, because when we think about people who dream themselves to be authoritarian leaders, and then when we think about people who support them and how these different regimes establish themselves in different countries, whether it's Russia or Hungary, we don't see this quick drop off, because I think none of those wannabe dictators were as inept at their policy, because we see that while Donald Trump is showing a weakness on international stage when it comes to Ukraine, he's showing a weakness and been dubbed Taco, which is Trump will always chicken out in every category, in every conflict, which really just creates tremendous amount of instability. And whether his base cares about national security, whether his base cares about tariffs, which I think are hitting now more and more Americans squarely in our pockets, I think that they have less and less reason to be satisfied with this president, which is why we see this president take on an agenda that has nothing to do with improving lives of Americans, and has to do with really just focusing on the revenge part of the campaign, and looking at controlling media, who is really a big threat to Donald Trump, because they can relay the information about the economy, that things are not looking well, because President Trump already suggested that rather than having quarterly statements for publicly traded companies, we should switch to every 6 months, and then maybe 2 weeks more. So we see a president whose agenda is failing, whose base is starting to see this, and so he's trying to do everything he can to turn out the lights in this room. His position in Ukraine and his weakness in stopping Putin, and media continuously discussing that, is just part of his problem, but indicative of a pattern in which he operates.
Yes, clear here. We see that Donald Trump calls Europe to realize pressure on China, but at the same way, Donald Trump makes another things concerning China and Xi Jinping. Trump told that he just completed a very productive call with President Xi of China. We make progress on many very important issues, including trade, fentanyl, the need to bring the war between Russia and Ukraine to an end, and the approval of the TikTok deal. I also agreed with Chinese president we would meet at the APEC summit in South Korea, that I would go to China in the early part of next year, and that President Xi would likewise come to the United States at an appropriate time. The call was a very good one. We will be speaking again by phone. Appreciate the TikTok approval, and both look forward to meeting at that summit. So, Yuri, it's like a conversation between two good friends. But Trump says that China can stop Russian-Ukrainian war, but European Union should take pressure on China. So I don't understand this line of steps.
I think it's becoming more and more clear that President of the United States is not interested in having truly adversarial relations with China, and he really doesn't trust other democratic countries and states, and views them as more of somebody that has a different set of values than he does. It always looks suspicious to me that the concerns that former President Biden had about China distancing itself from the United States with the arrival of President Trump, because there would be such conflict between the two. Because Donald Trump and any other authoritarian wannabe authoritarian leader they really see a point in getting along, because they have a lot in common, and also because they have the same strategy, which is regional dominance. And if you have this if you have United States that is basically trying to flex its muscles at China, and China which flexes its muscles at United States, that just proves to all the countries around that they need to pick a side. They need to be either with China or with the United States, and then those are the countries that are going to be kind of deciding their fates and controlling them, and that's how it works. This is a scenario that I think works well for Xi and works reasonably, works well for Trump, both of them for now, but I think that's part of the regionalization of this planet that they seem to be going for, as this Yalta 2 or whatever you want to call it arrangement. The other part is actual trade war and a TikTok war that we have with China, which is really indicative of the problems that we're having. Because when it comes to TikTok, we're speaking about a software program platform that's actually been banned in the United States. And it's only because President Trump told Attorney General not to enforce this law, which apparently is okay, that we continue to have TikTok in the United States. So thank you, President Trump. And the reason that they came up with this was because this is to buy it out of Chinese hands, because, there's this national security, TikTok, so much data. But now we see that basically this is an opportunity for some kind of a semi-socialist scheme where crony socialism, where we have friends and corporations friendly to the president who are looking to become new owners of this Chinese money maker machine that is currently being traded at like barely what it's actually worth, while all these other companies are trading at many, many times what they're worth when we're talking about social media, as well as other companies that are considered popular. Basically, it's a wonderful way to make a lot of money. So because right now it's under Chinese control, let's get it over here. Okay, so that problem they're going to resolve. But then there's actual national security data that is the issue. Well, Donald Trump is really looking at leaving that in Chinese hands to begin with. So this is an opportunity for some people to make money and for other people to continue to get data about Americans. But that's really where Donald Trump's mind seems to be at. And when we talk about his trade war with China and tariffs, we run into a situation where apparently he started a war trade war without realizing that we are in a desperate need of these rare earth minerals that China has, and those magnets which we need to put on our rockets and our jets. And that's really important for us to keep our defense against China. So it's kind of a circle there, where we're getting stuff from China to protect ourselves from China. And if China won't give it to us, we're going to be in trouble, because if China attacks, you see. On the other hand, there is Ukraine, which has a huge agreement with United States about rare earth minerals, and all that we have to do is just stop the war, and then Ukraine will be glad to work with the United States and all that stuff. Much easier than working with China, I would think. But nonetheless, those are the options that we see that Trump put himself in a great vulnerability because of rare earth minerals. He really wants that TikTok deal done on terms that are friendly to him. So why would he fight them? Why would he argue with them? And they work with him as being another regional power. So Trump has a lot more reasons to want to get along with China than to break off this relationship and to damage it in any way. So the only thing I didn't talk about is Ukraine and Russia, because really Ukraine is something between Putin and Trump that they need to get this sorted out so that Putin and Trump could make money. But for China and the United States, they have plenty to discuss, which in a way is really terrible, because if they don't bring up Ukraine, they don't bring up Russian aggression, that sends a signal to China that they can do whatever they want to help Russia, or for that matter, Ukraine, pretty much, because it's nothing that concerns the United States. Does it send a message of weakness? Yes, it does.
Yuri, it's a pity, but we have what we have. Today, maybe something will change in nearest future. We hope.
You know, I keep thinking that the bad news is the news is not good, but the good news is there's a lot of news. So let's stick to that.
Agree. Thank you for all your explanation, for your thoughts, and for your time. See you next week. Take care, please.
Take care.
Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. My name is Iryna Uslova. Guys, thank you for joining us. See you later. Take care.